Greetings, my fellow freedom-loving sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning into the LO3 podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2020. Tuesday night in the 70s in South Florida. Looks like everyone's going to be shopping, going crazy, doing their last-minute Thanksgiving goodies and flying out of here. Going through the body scanners, be patted down like little prisoners. And go, yes, master, may I have another? And the bars and the restaurants, many of them will be going to the Broward administrator and all the bureaucrats and the mayors around the country that want to make tougher restrictions and all that. Will they resist? Or will they go, yes, master, may I have another? Watch the video that happened in Erie County, New York, Buffalo area, when the folks at the gym told the health department and the deputies, you need a warrant. We won't comply. Beautiful. More people need to do that. And it's occurring worldwide, which I find it fantastic. And many others believe the true count of COVID-19. And that question I ask is, how accurate is it? They laugh and they claim to have a medical license and study conspiracy theories. Well, a theory has merit, not hot air. A conspiracy is more than one person involved. So the question is this, Kio bono, who benefits? Many people out there can't take the initiative on being responsible for their own actions, not to be babysitted by the state. And the ones that want to call the system on folks, snitching on them, makes them feel so conglomerate. And in reality, they're just a bunch of miserable trolls with the attributes of psychic vampires. People want to have a good time and enjoy life, and those can't. Schleprock syndrome. How many of you out there will take the initiative on ratting out your neighbor if they have multiple gatherings in their own home? Will you like it if the state comes in your place and tells you when to get laid, when to take a bath, when to take a dump, when to talk? Will you like that? If you're going to dish it out, you better learn to receive. If you don't want to receive, shut the hell up, go back to your cave, or other words, enjoy life while you can, plus remain vigilant on your health. So when I get these comments on social media, I don't get angry, but rather inspired. Do your own homework before you jump the gun on people, including myself. I don't have all the answers, but I do take the initiative on doing some research, examine things thoroughly, and using finesse. If the facility wants me to wear a mask on their terms, I will honor it. That's their property. I don't have to go in these facilities. But when the state puts a burden on everybody, then that's a problem. Because they believe they can do whatever they want. They claim to have qualified immunity, and you don't. It's the other way around. They're supposed to represent the people, not the corporations, not the big pharma or any other tyrannical cartel. So when all you folks out there decide to concede with the vaccine, roll up and go, yes, master, I'll take my shot. Make sure you have your flag that says, tread on me. Because the fact is this, you hate liberty, you hate personal responsibility, you want to be subservient. Those are the areas I observe responsibly. have an inquiry on everything. Who will benefit? If you don't learn from the past, you're doomed to repeat it. A lot of great history out there, folks, even when it comes to oppression by the state, the parasites of society, whether they're elected or appointed. Government in Latin means control of the mind. When many people in the United States give thanks, make sure it's from spirituality instead of her conformity. Don't wear the cowbell around your neck that says, yes, I represent, and arrogantly exercise her conformity. Because if you do, your children, the younger generation, will get tarnished, extinguished, dim the torch of freedom and morality, which is also known as liberty. Had I digress a little bit, forgive me, folks. Sometimes you have people out there believe they're more intelligent than you. But I don't get angry. It's just get positive energy. Enhance it. And if you're going to debate with me, have your facts. Not just from the mainstream garbage media. I cleanse myself from that poisonous entity. Well, we're going to be talking about the elections here. There'll be a couple of things. One, about Google shifting a minimum of 6 million votes in 2020 election. And how will the outcome would be? How will a contest election finally end? So, without further ado, we'll just go from the Epoch Times under election integrity. Google shifted a minimum of 6 million votes in 2020 election. This is Dr. Robert Epstein has a say on this. And it's written by Isabel Van Bruggen. As it reads here, Google shifted a bare minimum of 6 million votes in the November 3rd presidential election by pushing its political agenda onto its users, a research psychologist has claimed. In an interview with Fox News' Tucker Carlson tonight, Dr. Robert Epstein, a senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology in California, suggested that the big tech companies' search manipulation could have prompted millions of Americans to shift their votes towards Democrats. Google search results were strongly biased in favor of liberals and Democrats. This was not true on Bing or Yahoo, Epstein said, referring to a team he put together to monitor the activities of big tech companies in the run-up of the 2020 election. The project team recruited a diverse group of 733 registered voters, Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, from 3 very critical battleground states, Arizona, Florida, and North Carolina, who were then equipped with special software that tracked their activity on the internet, such as searches on Google, Bing, and Yahoo. The bias was being shown to pretty much every demographic group we looked at, including conservatives. Conservatives got slightly more bias in their search results than liberals did. How do you account for that? Epstein said. Epstein told the Epoch Times this month that the software gave the project team the ability to see, with the agent's permission, all election-related activities on the internet performed by the field agents, allowing the team to capture ephemeral content such as search results, reminders, search suggestions, and news feeds. We found what seems to be a smoking gun, Epstein continued. That is, we found a period of days when the vote reminder on Google's homepage was being sent to only to liberals, but no one of our conservative field agents received a vote reminder during those days. He said when we went public with his research on October 29th, Google backed off. They literally shut off that manipulation that night. So for 4 days before the election, they were showing vote reminders to everyone. Finally, he continued. The bottom line at the moment is that these manipulations, the ones that we've so far quantified, could easily have shifted at least 6 million votes in just one direction. Epstein added, that's the bare minimum at this point. That I'm confident the maximum we haven't even begun to estimate that yet because we have so much data to look at. In explaining his findings on Epoch Times, American Thought Leaders Program, Epstein said Google's homepage is viewed in the United States 500 million times a day. And why the hell these people are still confoundedly using that half-assed search engine? I'm trying to figure that one out. If that kind of reminder was being used systematically over a period of time, it affected more than who voted on election day. It affected who sent in mail, in votes. It affected who registered to vote, he said. Google, the world's largest internet company with some 100,000 employees and more than $130 billion in annual revenue, has been accused of channeling the politics of its mostly left-leaning workforce into its products, which the company has repeatedly denied. Google did not immediately respond to a request for comment by the Epoch Times. Responding to Epstein's research, Senators Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin, Ted Cruz, Republican from Texas, and Mark Lee, Republican from Utah, submitted a letter on November 5th to Google CEO Sundar Pichai. I hope I pronounced his name right. Requesting clarification of his testimony to the House Committee on the Judiciary and his response to Senators' written inquiry from August. Cruz accused the big tech companies of presenting a grave threat to free speech in the United States and election integrity. Google has more power than any company on the face of the planet, and Dr. Epstein's findings raise serious concerns about Google's abuse of that power and his willingness to manipulate its platform to help Joe Biden win the presidency. Google must provide answers as to why and how it manipulated users to influence this election, he said in a statement. Well, you have to realize this, my friends. If you find out why they've been questioning Google and didn't see the censorship on what you look for, you're not paying attention. That's one of the areas you have to really focus on. And I'm not a big fan of Google. And I may have a Gmail account and all that. But, they need me more than I need them. I don't get too personal on these things. I'm soon may not use it at all. Let it linger. But the fact is this. This is part of the propaganda machine. Public relations. Edward Bernays' wet dream. On steroids, to be exact. And a lot of folks out there, not all, but many of them are getting caught hook, line, and sinker. Look at the ones that were celebrating, climaxing out there that Joe Biden won. It was not official. Many of the people out there bought it. Right there, they're the same individuals that will sign a contract and don't read the fine print, and they're the ones who will be screaming the most. And the search engine I use is DuckDuckGo. There's other search engines that are alternative to Google, Bing, and Yahoo. Why be tracked? Screw them. Gotta go further than that. Always look at the bigger picture. You got technology at your fingertips. How come a lot of folks are not using it, utilizing it? No, they'd rather be enslaved. That's what you get about technology. You want to enhance humanity or enslave it. And everyone that bought the whole Biden thing are been duped, swindled, conned. Just like the ones that believe they need to give up our liberty for security on the horrific events of September 11, 2001. Mind Control 101. You got a lot to learn, folks. I don't want to hear any of your piss poor excuses. However, like I said before, January 6, 2021, 1 p.m., Congressional Joint Session on Electoral College results. It will be exciting. Mark my words. Mr. Toad's wild ride still continues. The political edition to be exact. Well, that's what Brandon Smith has to say. How will the contested election finally end? I know he's from Alt Market, but this one here came from BobLivingstonLetter.com under alerts. As it reads here, as I predicted in July, the 2020 U.S. election has turned into a chaotic and contested mess. But there's still a lot of people out there that still have no clue what this means and how bad it can really get. They are so worried about who wins the presidency that they are not looking at the bigger picture. This election is not about Donald Trump or Joe Biden. It is about what the elites call the Great Reset, a program designed to create as much catastrophe as possible in order to distract the masses until global centralization can be implemented. The election is a tool for creating disorder and nothing more. Once you understand this fact, the situation becomes clear and the future is easier to predict. To that end, I see few specific scenarios that could play out in the next few months, some more likely than others. So let's jump right into it. What will the current contested election lead to in the short term and the long term? Number one, scenario one, Trump remains regardless of the official vote count. The left loses their minds. This is, in my view, the most likely scenario right now. My reasoning behind my analysis is built on a logical framework. We must ask ourselves what the narrative serves the globalist agenda most effectively. First, consider this. There is a big difference between Biden winning the Electoral College and Biden actually stepping foot in the White House. I'm not sure many people understand this. They seem so focused on the vote tally that they are forgetting that Trump is already in the possession of the office of the president. Also, consider the fact that Trump is surrounded by globalists in his own cabinet. If they want Trump to remain, they could easily convince him to remain and declare the election void. Of course, there will be some kind of rationale on the Trump side in order to convince his constituency to support this decision. I think this will come in the form of evidence of direct election interference by leftists and Democrats in multiple states. I think if there is a recount held in any of the contested states, multiple instances of ballot stuffing and rigging will be discovered. Any inkling of cheating would destroy all faith of the election process. This alone would be enough to compel conservatives to ignore the results of the Electoral College. But where do things go from there? Say Trump does in fact refuse to accept the election outcome based on the possible ballot fraud? What happens next? It's actually rather simple. Trump just refused to leave the White House. Who's going to remove him? not the Democrats. They have even less governmental power than they did before the election. The so-called blue wave never materialized. They have no military at their disposal. They might be able to compel members of the military to step down and refuse to serve, but to forcefully remove a sitting president while an election is under suspicion, I doubt it. This means the only way Trump goes anywhere is if he concedes. Ask yourself, do you think Trump will actually concede given his rhetoric so far? The fight itself is kabuki theater. The elites will keep whoever they want to keep in the Oval Office. What keeping Trump in office does is create maximum tension between the political left and the political right. The leftists have become so volatile and totalitarian in their behavior that conservatives will not allow any more power to fall into their hands. Many of them will view Trump in office as paramount, even if they don't particularly like Trump. The alternative in their minds is so much worse. Here's where things get ugly, though. The leftists don't have an army, but they do have the mob. They will see Trump's refusal to concede as a usurpation of the presidency, and they will indeed mobilize to riot. This is exactly what the elites want, because then Trump will have an excuse to initiate martial law in the U.S., and this will inevitably lead to violation of the Bill of Rights. Not only that, but he would have a large chunk of support from conservatives while doing it. And we can look at the Insurrection Act of 1808. Okay? So we can look at that too, folks. If conservatives support the dismantling of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, who then is left to defend the principles these documents represent? No one. The globalists win because we will have aided the destruction of the very values we would supposedly die to protect. And the globalists barely have to lift a finger. So what is the alternative? Refuse to support martial law measures, and instead conservatives must organize their own community security in the form of local militias. This would derail any leftist movement to destroy property or conjure general unrest, and would it throw cold water on the idea that martial law is a necessary option. The leftists present little to no threat if communities are organized and trained to deal with them. The true enemy is not leftist extremists. They are useful idiots. Nothing more. The true enemy is the globalists, and they must eventually be dealt with, and directly and harshly, if the threat is ever going to end. 2. Global forces centralize in response to U.S. destabilization. In the longer term, if scenario 1 plays out as described, Donald Trump and his supporters would be labeled a nationalist coup by the global community. The UN will suggest possible intervention, and numerous countries would cut economic ties with America. This means the end of the dollar as the world reserve currency and the formation of a global basket currency alternative. Beyond that, eventually the prospect of war would arise. All this would happen over the course of the next 4 years. The U.S. will be treated like the Fourth Reich, and the conservatives will be seen as Nazis. The comparison will be ridiculous, but understand that which we view as normal and reasonable principles today may be deemed fascist tomorrow by those that scheme to enslave the world. Global war would be disastrous for the entire planet, and I doubt this is what the elites intend to pursue, because I think they want the earth nice and pristine for themselves. What they will do, however, is initiate a global economic war that will destroy the U.S.'s ability to function monetarily. At this point, the UN could conceivably enter the U.S. in the name of peacekeeping, as well as securing the U.S. nuclear arsenal. It is highly unlikely that the majority of leftists will survive this period, as they are completely unprepared for the loss of normal supply chains and the violence that this could cause. The real pacification of liberty-minded Americans would take place during this stage of the collapse after the economy has hit rock bottom. Disrupting outside interference by globalist institutions will require organized efforts across the country, as well as covert efforts to remove industrial individual globalists from the equation. If the elites are afraid to leave their bunkers, then there will be a chance that liberty conservatives can rebuild the U.S. over time as a self-contained, self-reliant economy. Eventually, globalists will have to be unseated from their positions of power entirely. Now, including the Federal Reserve. 3. Scenario number 3. Trump concedes and Biden enters the White House. I have written about this possibility before, though I still think it is improbable. If Biden does indeed enter the White House and take control of the presidency, expect certain consequences right away. A complete full-spectrum censorship campaign of conservative news sources will be undertaken by tech companies and the government. There is no way Biden and the Democrats could keep control of the situation while conservatives are able to share information in real time. Do not be surprised if web providers suddenly start kicking conservative sites off their servers, just as BitChute, a YouTube alternative, was kicked off their server for 24 hours on election night. Next, Biden will try to enforce a national pandemic lockdown by executive order, using the spike in infections as a rationale, as a level 4 lockdown like those being implemented in Germany and France would disrupt most travel in the U.S., make it difficult for conservatives to mobilize or relocate to other states. So we can say he's pro-involuntary servitude, the 13th Amendment, anti-13th Amendment. Within the first year of the Biden presidency, the economy will collapse. This will have to be executed swiftly by the globalists so that Biden can blame the disaster as a residual effect of the Trump presidency. Witch hunt, point the finger, everyone but me. Biden will attempt to initiate martial law measures in order to maintain control of the population, and he would ask help from the UN, IMF, and the World Bank. Finally, Biden will try to implement a national gun grab, perhaps by executive order, as a means to disarm and pacify conservatives. He would have to. There is no other way around it. This is why I think the Biden scenario is less likely, because disarming the American population will be almost impossible to achieve. Police and military personnel will not want to try it, and many of them will also be conservative. That those that think a majority of the military will simply follow orders have never been around military people. Most of them are not the mindless robots that the leftist media portrays them. Some will follow orders, but the division in the military will be deep and distinct. This is why Biden's only option will be to seek outside help from foreign sources and the UN. If there was ever a scenario that is to the advantage of the liberty movement, it is this one. Millions of conservatives will galvanize and also organize overnight at the threat of a leftist dictatorship and possible UN intervention in our country. The lines will be clear and the fight will be solidified. Scenario 4. A deal is struck. There is a chance that the political deal will be struck in the midst of an election stalemate, much like the deal that was struck during the election of 1876. What that deal would look like is hard to say, but the only reason for such a scenario to play out would be to keep the American people apathetic and inactive, feeling as though the situation has resolved itself. In this situation, or any of the situations above, there will be a need for predominantly conservative states and regions to protect themselves from collateral damage during political turmoil. This means conservatives, towns, and states need the option to say no to any decision that trickles down from Washington, D.C. In other words, we will need to balkanize and insulate ourselves from the fallout. We could say, like for certain ludicrous, frivolous federal laws, nullification, 10th Amendment. The politicians in Washington do not actually represent the interests of the people any longer. While there are some who I think are honestly pursuing a better America, many of them are bought and paid for. Regardless of executive orders in D.C., regardless of deals struck on Capitol Hill, the interests of the American people will only ever be fulfilled by the American people, meaning we must take matters into our own hands. Relying on any political leader to salvage freedom is a foolish endeavor, and this includes relying on Trump. The election is only a catalyst for greater distraction and chaos. Whether or not Trump stays in office is only relevant to one thing. If Trump stays in, the collapse happens slightly slower. If Biden goes in, the collapse happens quickly. It is fine to watch the election circus carefully, but we must always be conscious of our preparedness for what happens after the circus is over and reality sets in. We must always keep in mind who the real enemies are. The leftists are insane, but they are also a symptom of the disease, not the source of the cancer. The globalists fund and influence multiple factors within current conflict, remove the cancerous cells, and the mortal threat of the body disappears. We don't kill the body to treat the body. We cut out the tumor. Exactly. Don't be surprised, folks. The globalists are enjoying this stuff. This is why having an anxiety attack, manifesting who wins, who loses, is just an entrapment game. This is why I say January 6, 2021. It will be an exciting time. And how will the globalists play this out? The fact is this, even President Trump has some members of the Council of Foreign Relations, global entities within his cabinet. Yes, they're very bad advisors. But Biden's too obvious with his so-called transitional team. It's like awful, stupid, lousy. Remember, he's just a man in bad mental health. He is a Twilight Zone. And Kamala Harris is just a fraud, a poser, a communist sympathizer. She went on her hands or knees to the New World Order also. Always be vigilant, pay attention thoroughly, and examine the bigger picture. It's going to be one insane ride. Mark my words. So, that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, if you said something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to Decorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnotes on my Spreaker page. If you want to contact me, you can hit me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com or LokiLuckNumbers03@protonmail.com. And, hey, I urge you support Bob Livingston, Brandon Smith, Bob Livingston letter, all that, and support, give them some donations. That'd be cool. And the Epoch Times as well. Support these sites and all the stuff, everything I narrate. Show them some support. If you want to throw me some change, that'd be great. You can hit me at paypal.me/LokiLuck3. And once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.